The moment the council laughed, humanity's future changed forever. No alarms sounded. No weapons fired. No worlds burned. Yet in that single breath of mockery, something ancient and dangerous was born inside the human spirit. A promise. A quiet one. The kind that does not shout, but never forgets. The Hall of Concord hovered above a blue dwarf star, wrapped in rings of glowing metal and drifting shields. It was the political heart of the known galaxy. Species that had ruled for tens of thousands of years gathered here to decide who mattered, and who did not. Today, they were deciding humanity. Ambassador Jonah Hale stood alone on the lower platform, hands clasped behind his back. He was not tall. He was not imposing. His suit was simple, stitched with the blue and white symbol of Earth Unified. He looked calm, but his pulse hammered in his ears. Behind him, across light years of distance, 8 billion humans were listening. The council chamber was vast beyond reason. Gravity shifted subtly from one section to another to accommodate beings who breathed gas, liquid, or something stranger. 12 elevated thrones formed a circle, each occupied by an ancient power. The Thalrix Prime shimmered like liquid glass. The Corvati matron loomed, her many eyes unblinking. The Oruan Collective spoke as a single chorus of sound and light. These were civilizations that had mastered stars before humans mastered agriculture. Jonah activated the translator node at his throat and spoke. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he said steadily, "humanity thanks you for hearing us. We come not to demand power, but to request recognition. We ask for limited access to trade routes, settlement rights in unclaimed regions, and peaceful cooperation." Silence followed. Not the respectful kind. The Corvati matron leaned forward slightly. Her voice scraped through the chamber like stone on bone. "Your species is young." Jonah nodded. "Yes. And fast learning." The Thalrix Prime rippled, light fracturing through its form. "You have existed for less than a fraction of a council cycle. Your kind destroys its own ecosystems. You wage war among yourselves. Why should the galaxy trust you?" Jonah did not flinch. "Because we survived those mistakes. Because we learned. Because we chose unity when extinction was easier." A low vibration spread through the chamber. Laughter. Not loud. Not cruel. Worse, amused. The Oruan Collective spoke next. "Human lifespan averages less than 1 century. You burn brightly, then vanish. Wisdom requires time." Jonah felt his jaw tighten. Short lives make every decision matter. The Thalrix Prime raised a crystalline limb. The laughter faded. "The council has already deliberated," it said. "Your request is denied." The words hit like vacuum. Jonah opened his mouth, but the Corvati matron continued. "You will remain confined to your home system. You may explore beyond only regions deemed valueless. No council protection. No shared technology. No voice." Jonah swallowed. "You are condemning us to isolation." "No," the Thalrix replied calmly. "We are protecting the galaxy from instability." The final words were delivered gently. "Return when you have matured. In perhaps 10,000 years." That was when someone laughed again. It echoed. Jonah looked up at the towering figures and realized something terrifying. They were not afraid of humanity. They did not hate them. They simply did not care. Guards of polished alloy approached. The session was over. As Jonah was escorted away, he turned back one last time. "We will remember this day," he said. The council did not respond. They did not think it mattered. The broadcast ended. On Earth, the reaction was not immediate fury. It was silence. Cities stopped buzzing. Factories slowed. Screens replayed the denial again and again. People watched the laughter on loop. Children asked why the aliens thought humans were weak. No one had a good answer. 3 days later, the United Earth Assembly convened in emergency session. The chamber was crowded, tense, and loud. Some leaders demanded restraint. "We must comply. Survival comes first." Others argued for secrecy. We hide. We prepare quietly. Then Director Amina Cade stepped forward. She had built disaster shelters on Mars. She had coordinated evacuations during solar flare collapses. She did not waste words. They gave us the outer rim, she said. The dead zones. The radiation fields. The regions they abandoned. She paused. So let's take them. The room erupted. Amina continued calmly. We were not rejected because we are weak. We were rejected because we are unpredictable. And that scares old empires. A map appeared behind her, dark, scattered with warning symbols. Unstable stars. Shattered planets. Regions marked, non viable. This is where they failed, she said. Which means it's where we learn. The vote was not unanimous. But it was decisive. Humanity would leave the comfort of its cradle and step into the dark. The Exodus initiative launched within a year. Hundreds of massive colony vessels were built, not sleek, not elegant, but modular, repairable, adaptable. Each ship carried engineers, farmers, scientists, teachers, and children. Not soldiers. Captain Rhea Solis stood on the bridge of the first vessel, Endurance Dawn, watching Earth shrink into a pale blue dot. Final checks complete, her navigator said. Rhea exhaled slowly. Then let's go build something impossible. The jump into the outer rim was violent. Radiation storms battered shields. Navigation systems failed. 3 ships were lost before the fleet even slowed. When they arrived, the stars looked wrong. Dim, unstable, hostile. The first world they surveyed had no breathable air, crushing gravity, and constant electrical storms. Rhea smiled grimly. Mark it, she said. We start here. The outer rim did not welcome humanity. It tried to kill them. And that was exactly the kind of challenge humans understood. The first 6 months on Charon's Reach were a lesson written in pain. The planet did not care that humans were hopeful. Its gravity crushed bones. Its storms fried electronics without warning. The soil was toxic, the water acidic, and the sun flared violently every 30 hours, flooding the surface with radiation strong enough to kill an unprotected human in minutes. 3,000 colonists died before the first year ended. Not all at once. Slowly. One failure at a time. Captain Rhea Solis attended every memorial. There were too many. Names etched into metal walls because stone cracked under the planet's pressure. Each name was a reminder that the Council had been right about one thing: this place was not meant for life. But humans had never accepted meant for. The first shelters were buried deep beneath the surface, not because it was easier, but because it was the only option. Engineers rewired mining drills into habitat frames. Farmers learned to grow fungus that fed on toxic minerals. Children were taught emergency protocols before multiplication tables. They adapted because they had to. Dr. Leon Markov worked 20 hours a day. He slept in his lab, surrounded by failed prototypes and humming machines. He was not a genius by Council standards. No ancient knowledge. No alien tech. What he had was desperation. When radiation storms overloaded the shields, he did not try to strengthen them. He redesigned them to fail safely, bleeding excess energy into underground crystal veins the team discovered by accident. When gravity caused long-term organ damage, doctors rewrote exercise regimens and genetic therapies to strengthen muscle density within weeks instead of generations. Every solution was ugly. Every solution worked. 1 year after landing, Charon's Reach was still deadly, but no longer winning. The Council noticed. At first, it was mild curiosity. Surveillance drones recorded the human settlement expanding instead of collapsing. Power signatures stabilized. Population decline slowed. A Thalrix observer commented that the humans were persistent. Another noted they were inefficient but stubborn. No action was taken. Humans spread anyway. Scout vessels pushed deeper into the outer rim, ignoring charts marked with red warnings. They found shattered planets with molten cores still warm enough to power cities. They found moons wrapped in ice that could be melted and sealed. They found asteroid fields so dense with rare metals that automated mining paid for entire colonies in months. Where the Council saw hazards, humans saw problems. And humans loved solving problems. Within 20 years, Karen's Reach was no longer alone. 7 colonies followed. Then 12. Then dozens. They were not beautiful. No shining spires. No floating gardens. They were functional. Every colony was different because every world tried to kill them in a different way. Humans did not force one solution everywhere. They customized. They learned. They shared knowledge freely because hoarding it meant death. A generation grew up knowing only the outer rim. Children like Tamsin Vale. Tamsin was born under red emergency lights during a radiation storm. Her first lullaby was the hum of shield generators. By age 10, she could repair a life support valve faster than most adults. By 16, she was piloting supply skimmers through debris fields that would terrify trained military pilots. Fear was a luxury the outer rim did not allow. When Tamsin looked at the stars, she did not see beauty. She saw distance. And distance meant freedom. Back in council space, debates grew louder. The humans are expanding faster than projections, the Corvati matron warned. They have no warships, replied another member. No fleets. No council alliances. They are building infrastructure, the Auruan collective observed. Industry. Logistics. Still irrelevant, said the Thalrix Prime. They remain confined to valueless regions. That word again. Valueless. The Council did not understand what humans were doing differently. They assumed survival meant comfort. Humans knew survival meant momentum. Then the accident happened. A Council trade convoy misjumped near human space. Its navigation core malfunctioned, throwing it directly into a dense debris corridor near the colony world Ashfall. 3 massive alien vessels lost power and drifted. Human sensors picked them up immediately. Captain Rhea Solis was older now, her hair threaded with grey, but her posture still iron. Options, she asked. We could ignore them, an officer said. They're Council. Not our problem. Silence filled the bridge. Rhea remembered the laughter in the Hall of Concord. She remembered the word valueless. Prepare rescue teams, she said. The operation was dangerous. Radiation storms raged. Hulls were unstable. 1 human pilot died pulling an alien vessel free. When the survivors were brought aboard a human station, they expected detention. Instead, they were given medical care, food, translation support. The alien captain, a being of layered chitin and light, stared at Rhea in disbelief. Why? It asked. Rhea answered simply. Because leaving you to die would make us what they think we are. The survivors returned to council space with stories no one expected. Stories of humans working without rest. Of colonies carved from death. Of a species that did not retreat when the galaxy pushed back. The reports were archived. Ignored. Until they weren't. 5 years later, pirates struck the colony of Hollow Point. They were not council-aligned. They were scavengers who believed humans were easy prey. The colony had no military base. No standing fleet. What it had was preparation. Automated defense grids powered by asteroid cores. Civilian ships retrofitted into trap layers. Pilots like Tamsin Vale, who had grown up dodging debris at lethal speeds. The pirates lost 6 ships in 12 minutes. The survivors fled. Footage spread across the outer rim. For the first time, aliens saw humans not as survivors, but as planners. As builders. As something growing. Director Amina Cade watched the reports from her office carved into the rock of Karen's Reach. We're being noticed, an analyst said. Amina nodded. Good. And if the council intervenes? They won't, Amina replied. Not yet. Old powers hate admitting mistakes. She looked at the map of human space, no longer scattered, but connected. We don't need their permission anymore. Far beyond the colonies, council sensors detected something new. A human-built station unlike any before it. Massive. Mobile. Industrial. A hub. A statement. The outer rim was no longer empty. And humanity was no longer asking for a place in the galaxy. They were taking one. The station was called Hearth. Not officially. Not on any registry the Council recognized. Humans named it that because hearths were where fires were kept alive, controlled, shared, and impossible to ignore once they burned hot enough. Hearth Station did not orbit a planet. It moved slowly through the outer rim, following resource flows, trade routes, and danger. It was part factory, part city, part shipyard. Millions lived inside its layered hulls. Children learned math beside fusion cores. Farmers worked hydroponic forests stacked kilometers high. Engineers built ships while standing on floors that vibrated with constant creation. It was not elegant. It was unstoppable. The Council finally called an emergency session. For the first time in 10,000 years, the topic was not an internal dispute or a minor border conflict. It was humanity. They have unified their settlements, the Thalrix Prime said, light flickering sharply through its crystalline form. They are no longer isolated. They rescued Council citizens, added the Oruan Collective. They defended against piracy. They are producing technology without shared databases. The Corvati matron's eyes narrowed. They are becoming independent. Silence followed. Independence was dangerous. Not because it was illegal, but because it was contagious. They are still confined to the outer rim, another member argued. Let them build. They will collapse under their own instability. But even as the words were spoken, doubt crept into the chamber. Because the reports told a different story. Human lifespans had increased in rim-adapted populations. Their technology was crude in appearance but terrifyingly efficient. Their ships were not optimized for beauty or longevity, but for repair, modification, and sacrifice. They built things expecting them to break. And that made them very hard to stop. At Hearth Station, Tamsin Vale guided her ship into Dock Ring 7 with practiced ease. She was 28 now, her movements confident, her reflexes sharp. She had never seen Earth. She did not miss it. What's the rush? Her co-pilot asked. Council traffic, Tamsin replied. Unannounced. That was new. A single Council envoy ship hovered outside the station, its hull polished, its design ancient and flawless. It looked out of place beside hearth-scarred exterior. Director Amina Cade met the envoy personally. The alien representative was Thalrix, smaller than the Prime but no less sharp. You are exceeding your allowance, the envoy said without greeting. Your expansion rate is destabilizing regional projections. Amina folded her hands. We are within the limits you set. The limits assumed failure. Then update your assumptions. The Thalrix envoy paused. You are not authorized to construct military infrastructure. Amina's eyes were calm. We haven't. The envoy gestured. Your station can produce warships. It can produce ships, Amina corrected. What they're used for depends on who attacks us. That answer was forwarded directly to the Council. Some members panicked. Others dismissed it. The Zekri Dominion did not. The Zekri were an old empire, older than most humans could comprehend. They bordered the outer rim, their territory rich and secure. They watched humanity's rise with growing unease. Not fear. Insult. These creatures were cast out, the Zekri High Warlord snarled. And now they build cities in our shadow. They have not violated our borders, an advisor warned. They will, the Warlord replied. Growth demands space. Permission was not requested. A fleet moved. The first attack came without warning. The colony of Brightfall never saw it coming. Zekri ships dropped from hyperspace and targeted infrastructure. Power, water, shields. It was efficient. Professional. Merciless. 8,000 humans died in the first hour. The message followed. Remain in your wasteland, the Zekri broadcast. Or be erased. The Council hesitated. Debate flared. Sanctions were discussed. Observers were dispatched. No one intervened. At Hearth Station, the news spread like fire. Amina stood before the unified Rim Council, a human body formed not by species, but by survival. "We did not seek this," she said. "But it has found us." Fleet commanders spoke. Engineers argued. Civilians demanded protection. Tamsin watched from the edge of the chamber, fists clenched. They expected Amina to declare war. She didn't. "We will defend," Amina said. "And we will endure." The human response was quiet. Shipyards shifted production priorities. Cargo vessels gained armor plating. Mining drones were repurposed. Civilian pilots were trained in evasive tactics. No grand fleet assembled. Instead, hundreds of small actions unfolded. Zekri supply lines began to fail. Communications flickered. Fuel depots exploded without warning. Human ships did not engage head-on. They ambushed. They vanished. They struck where no one expected. The Zekri adapted, slowly. They had never fought an enemy willing to lose ships to win seconds. Humans turned asteroids into weapons. They overloaded jump points. They flooded sensor arrays with false signals. They fought asymmetrically because symmetry favored the powerful. Tamsin flew reconnaissance and sabotage. She lost friends. She kept flying. The war dragged on for 2 years. The Council watched in growing horror as the Zekri, an empire that had stood for millennia, began to strain. Humanity did not conquer worlds. They broke momentum. They forced the Zekri to spend resources faster than they could replace them. And then came the moment that changed everything. A human strike group reached the edge of Zekri core space. Instead of attacking, they broadcast. "We are not here to destroy you," Amina said, her image transmitted across Zekri worlds. "We are here to make you stop." Behind her, human ships held position. Not firing. Waiting. "We remember Brightfall," she continued. "But we also remember what it means to choose a different ending." The Zekri expected annihilation. They received an offer. Withdrawal. Reparations. A demilitarized border. The High Warlord refused. Until his own people began to starve. The war ended not with victory cheers, but with surrender. The council chamber was silent when the reports arrived. Humanity had defeated a major power. Not through superior weapons, but through endurance, creativity, and restraint. The Thalric's Prime finally spoke the words no council member had wanted to say. "We were wrong." In the Outer Rim, Hearth Station burned brighter than ever. And humanity kept building. Not because they were angry, but because stopping had never been an option. Fear spread faster than any fleet ever could. It moved through trade routes, whispered through diplomatic channels, and crept into the thoughts of species that had never once doubted their place in the universe. Humanity was no longer a question. Humanity was a fact. The Outer Rim had become something the Council could no longer ignore. Human trade hubs replaced pirate markets. Human-built jump relays shortened routes the Council had never bothered to optimize. Entire border economies began to lean toward Rim space, not because humans demanded loyalty, but because working with them was faster, cheaper, and strangely fair. They paid on time. They shared technology. They did not ask about species, only capability. For the first time in recorded history, younger civilizations began skipping the Council entirely. That terrified the old powers. At Hearth Station, Director Amina Cade studied the newest reports in silence. The war with the Zekri had ended 5 years ago, but its consequences were still unfolding. Refugees from border systems were arriving daily, non-humans seeking work, safety, and something the Council had forgotten how to provide. Opportunity. Amina did not turn them away. "Screen everyone," she ordered. "Then put them to work." Some advisors warned her this would provoke backlash. She already knew it would. On the colony world Ashfall, Tamsin Vale trained a new generation of pilots. Humans and aliens stood side by side in flight bays carved from black rock. The air was thin, the gravity harsh, but the lessons were universal. "Your ship will fail," Tamsin told them. Assume it. Plan for it. If you can't fix it while falling, you shouldn't be flying. A young alien trainee raised a clawed hand. Why do humans accept such risk? Tamsin shrugged. Because risk is honest. The council convened again. This time, there was no laughter. Proposals flooded the chamber. Trade restrictions. Military intervention. Forced integration. Some even suggested extermination before it was too late. The Corvati matron crushed that idea immediately. Genocide would unite them, she hissed. And we already know how that ends. Reluctantly, the council agreed to send an official delegation. Not to deny. To negotiate. Ambassador Ilian Rowe, a being of soft light and shifting form, was chosen. Known for patience. Known for calm. He arrived at Hearth Station under escort, expecting chaos. Instead, he found order. Not rigid. Not ceremonial. Functional. Children passed him in corridors carrying tools. Workers paused to nod politely. Security was visible but relaxed, designed to respond rather than intimidate. Amina met him in a simple room overlooking the station's core. You have built an empire, Ilian said. Amina shook her head. We built a home. You operate outside council authority. We were placed outside it. You defeated the Zekari. They attacked us. Ilian studied her. You could replace the council. Amina leaned forward slightly. We don't want to. That answer confused him. Humans did not seek dominance. They sought momentum. Growth. The freedom to act. And that made them dangerous in a way the council did not know how to control. Negotiations dragged on for months. Humans demanded recognition of Outer Rim sovereignty. Equal trade rights. Freedom of movement. The council resisted. Then something unexpected happened. A massive stellar collapse erupted near council core space. An unstable star went critical, threatening 3 populated worlds. Evacuation timelines were impossible. Council fleets scrambled, but their ancient systems were slow to adapt. Human sensors detected the event first. At Hearth Station, alarms rang. Amina did not hesitate. Deploy everything, she said. Human evacuation ships jumped into the disaster zone within hours. Modular transports reconfigured mid-flight. Civilian pilots volunteered without orders. Tamsin Vale was among the first wave. The radiation was lethal. The gravity unstable. Human ships burned, patched, burned again. They kept going. Over 12 million lives were evacuated. Human crews did not ask who deserved saving. They just moved faster. When the star finally collapsed, it did so into empty space. Council worlds were spared. The galaxy watched. The council chamber fell silent as the final numbers were reported. Human casualties. High. Human complaints. None. Ambassador Ilian returned to the chamber and spoke the truth no one else would. They are not replacing us, he said. They are doing what we stopped doing long ago. The vote followed. Recognition passed by the smallest margin in council history. The United Human Territories were granted official status. Outer Rim sovereignty was acknowledged. Trade corridors opened. The announcement echoed across the galaxy. On Hearth Station, people celebrated quietly. No grand parades. No declarations of victory. Just relief. Tamsin stood in a docking bay watching ships come and go. So that's it? Her co-pilot asked. We're accepted. Tamsin smiled faintly. We were accepted the moment we stopped asking. Amina addressed humanity later that cycle. They once called this place worthless, she said. They once laughed at us. Her voice carried across stations and worlds. We did not answer with hatred. We answered with creation. The council watched her speech in uneasy silence. They finally understood. Humanity was not dangerous because it fought. Humanity was dangerous because it endured. And endurance, once proven, could not be undone. In the Outer Rim, new stars were charted. New colonies founded. New lives born. Humanity did not slow down. They never had. 200 years after humanity was dismissed as insignificant, the galaxy no longer measured time the same way. Not because humans demanded it, but because human infrastructure made it practical. Trade routes synchronized to human jump relays. Emergency response protocols copied human models. Even council data networks quietly integrated human adaptive algorithms because they worked better under stress. The outer rim was no longer the edge. It was the engine. High Chancellor Lyra Mendel stood on the balcony of Horizon Spire, looking out over a sky filled with traffic. Thousands of ships moved in ordered chaos, human, alien, hybrid designs inspired by both. Beneath her feet was New Charon, once a death world, now a thriving planet of oceans, cities, and green belts engineered by generations who refused to give up. Lyra was human, but her cabinet was not. A Korvati economist. An Oruan systems architect. A Zekari cultural envoy, the descendants of former enemies. The galaxy had changed quietly, then all at once. Council transmission incoming, her aide announced. Lyra nodded. Put it through. The image that formed was familiar but altered. The Grand Council chamber still existed, but it felt smaller now. The ancient thrones remained, yet many were empty. Some species had faded. Others had joined the wider galactic community humanity helped stabilize. The Thalrix Prime addressed her. High Chancellor, it said, its voice less cold than history remembered. The Council requests assistance. Once, those words would have been unthinkable. Go on, Lyra replied calmly. Multiple frontier systems are collapsing. Economic failure. Environmental damage. Social unrest. Our models are insufficient. Lyra did not smile. Send the data, she said. We'll help. After the transmission ended, a young advisor hesitated. They dismissed us. Is it wise to keep saving them? Lyra turned toward the stars. They taught us what happens when power forgets responsibility, she said. We won't repeat that mistake. Humanity had learned something the Council never did. Survival was not a trophy. It was a duty. Across the outer rim, education centers taught history without pride or bitterness. Children learned about Earth, about the rejection, about the early deaths on Charon's Reach. They also learned about cooperation, about restraint, about choosing to build instead of burn. Tamsin Vale was old now. Her hair was silver, her movements slower, but her eyes were sharp as ever. She sat in a flight academy watching young pilots prepare for their first long-range missions. Human. Alien. Mixed crews. She remembered when the idea would have been impossible. A student approached her. Nervous. Excited. Commander Vale, the student said, why did the Council fear humanity so much? Tamsin thought for a long moment. Because we don't wait, she said finally. And we don't stop. The galaxy faced new challenges now. Rogue artificial intelligences born from forgotten wars. Regions of space warped by ancient experiments. Species emerging even younger than humanity once was, fragile, frightened, and hopeful. And every time, humans were there. Not as rulers. As builders. As problem solvers. As the species that walked into the dark and turned it into something livable. The Council still existed, but it no longer ruled alone. Power was shared. Earned. Maintained through action rather than age. In a quiet archive on Hearth Station, preserved for history, a single recording remained. The laughter from the day humanity was dismissed. It was not hidden. It was not erased. It was kept as a reminder. That arrogance had consequences. That underestimation could reshape the stars. High Chancellor Lyra Mendel addressed the galaxy on the anniversary of the Exodus. We were once told to wait 10,000 years, she said. We were told we were too young, too short-lived, too unstable. Her voice was steady. So we didn't wait. Humanity never claimed perfection. They claimed effort. They claimed responsibility. They claimed the belief that even in the harshest places, life could take root if someone was willing to try hard enough and long enough. The outer rim burned with light now, not the fire of war, but the glow of cities, stations, and shared futures. The Council's greatest mistake was never rejecting humanity. It was believing humanity would stay small. And across the endless dark, the stars kept turning. Witness to a species that refused to accept its limits.